Hey everybody, welcome back. Welcome back to another edition of 10 Minutes With. Today I have Eoghan Chelmiah, who for the first time I got his last name pronounced right. Man, I listened to about 4 YouTube videos to make sure I got your name pronounced right this time. So, former bantamweight champion of karate combat, new doctor over in Ireland. So, sir, welcome back. Welcome. Actually, this is the first time on this show, so welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Thank you so much for that introduction, and I'm doing very well. And yourself?
Doing awesome, man. If I was any, like a coach would say, if I was any better, I would be you. Speaking of this, if this is your first introduction to Eoghan, Eoghan's a fabulous martial artist. He's got great hands. He is now a doctor. We'll jump into that as well. You also take care of cattle. Your mom is your instructor. You just have an interesting story. Let's get a little introduction of that. Just kind of what I just spoke on to someone who may have never heard of you before.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm from Ireland, and currently right now I'm contending again, want to fight for the bantamweight world karate combat title. My mother is my coach, and I guess in parallel to my sporting career, I've achieved a doctorate in electronic engineering, and I work on my family dairy farm.
If you haven't seen, and we'll put a link up. I'll do a link in post. There is quite literally, there'll be footage of you on your Instagram of you doing some bag work or some mitt work, and then going out and putting hay to the cows and everything else. So you're literally doing it all. What is it like being growing up on a dairy farm? That's foreign to me. That is foreign.
Yeah, I guess from the outside perspective, it's a big contrast, but it's just something. It's just for me. It's just everyday life. I mean, I've been juggling this for as long as I can remember, and of course during my academic years when I was studying, I had to put all the farming kind of stuff to one side, and I spent most of my time just both competing and studying. And now that chapter is kind of on the pause for the moment after I got my doctorate, I've just kind of dived back into working on the family dairy farm.
Now you mentioned we just said you got your doctorate. What would be your dream job to actually apply this degree to?
You see, job wise, I mean, that's such a tough one. It's a question I get, and I can never truly answer it because I guess when I'm interested in something, I just like to dedicate all my time to it. So I'm very kind of project orientated. But in terms of like a full-time job, it's very, very tough to sit down and kind of like weed out exactly what I want to do, exactly like in terms of every day for the next period of time. I guess I'm so used to juggling the martial arts career with the academic, but I've never actually taken the time to really think, okay, but what's the final destination?
Right. Where do we actually go? And I can relate to that when I was out competing, and man, it's really hard to say. It's like 20 years ago. Half of my luggage was sport karate gear, and the other half were books. And for some reason, and I have a degree in computer science. We always had the biggest books. I got this book about yay big that was calculus. I got this book on operating systems, and thank God we didn't have a TSA back then because they're just all books you're just lugging along, and you do stuff on Friday night and you compete on Saturday as well. And in the meantime, you try to find time to study. You try to find those little times to do everything. But I know we've talked before about technology, and I'm like, I gotta curtail this conversation because we can go off. We were talking about AI last time and everything else. But I mean, it's tough being a student athlete. It's really tough. But it's impressive that you have gotten this far and everything. Would you give any advice to someone that's would be in your shoes that wants to study but also has a career in combat sports as well? What advice would you give to them?
I think it doesn't matter what subject you're doing. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's nothing to do with martial art, but like myself in engineering, it doesn't matter what topic it is. I just think you can take the same approaches that you take to your training preparations to your academic career. And I found that helped me a lot. And I'll give you an example of to be awarded your PhD, you have to pass what they call a viva voce, which is your kind of like your final exam, where you present all the findings you've been working on for the past 3 or 4 years, and you present them to a panel of experts, and they kind of scrutinize and they examine to make sure that all the work is correct and that you've took the correct procedures and that the work is of the standard of PhD. So when I was preparing for this, I was literally treating it as if it was a fight. I mean, in terms of I was mapping it out like a training camp. I was one element of the exam is you have to deliver a half an hour long presentation, just summarizing all the work. And my preparation for that was a bit like sparring. I'd set up and organize a few like sparring partners, which were lab colleagues, and I'd sit them down and just ask them, can I have 20 minutes of your time? Can I just run past you a quick presentation on a few topics? I'd get my supervisors, family members, anybody I can, and I'd seen that as sparring partners. And that was kind of like my sparring, where I was practicing all the conditions that would happen on the day, just before they would happen, just to get a sense of how I'm going to be feeling, how I'm able to deliver this content. And then the other element is of the PhD exam is where you sit down with the experts and you just walk through each chapter, how you did the work, and they just examine all of the contents in detail. And for this element, I seen this a bit like my strength and conditioning, where it didn't have to be hours on end, but you just pick up your own work or you'd flick through your own files online, and just a bit like strength and conditioning, just a few sets, a few reps of each chapter, where you're going through it and you're just making sure that everything looks the way it's supposed to, everything, that all the content, is it explained clearly? Is there any overhanging questions there? And I just broke down the whole preparation for 6 or 7 weeks, the same way I would with a fight camp. And that seemed to translate over perfectly, in that on the day it was a big success. I passed it without any big hiccups. And yeah, that's the biggest advice I give to anyone. Just take that same approach you have to a fight, where you break down all your training into what needs to be done, tick them off like a checklist, and you should be good to go, no matter
I
what.
think that's absolute solid advice, and it's funny because I think about it as well when I would be developing something. You're writing code and you run into an error, and you scratch your head like, what's wrong, and you try it again. So if you look at it like sparring, if you went in and you got popped, you're more than likely not going to try the exact same thing again. So you got to stop and say, hold on, time out. What did I do wrong? What's not working? And you can apply that thought process to any real world application. Like, okay, what I'm doing is not working. What am I doing wrong? What can I do different? So that's actually brilliant. That is a very brilliant way and approach. And I find a lot of martial artists, especially those that I run into now, that are being further educated. Another friend of mine just got his doctorate degree, and we kind of, this is what we know, so this is how we apply our method of thinking to our life. So that's actually, very brilliant. Speaking of that, if you want to look up Owen's record, you can go to Karate Combat, look him up on there. You're at one time in Karate Combat, looking at your record. Here we go. Your first fight, win, knockout, July 4th, 2021. Unanimous decision, August 5th, 2021. And then TKO victory, September 2021. You were coming here and just killing it every single time. You're one of the more active fighters in Karate Combat, but you did have a change, at least in your camp for the past few fights. I've noticed a more boxing heavy, training. I would rather for your output, which were the last ones were pretty impressive wins. What made you decide to kind of change up your routine or your training for Karate Combat?
So a lot of my training just comes down to the best facilities I have around me. I mean, I started karate, like traditional karate, at the age of 4. I've been doing karate my whole life, and just throughout my whole amateur career, I've been adding in different styles: taekwondo, boxing, mixed martial art, all these other styles. I've just been peppering and adding in and testing myself in different tournaments under different rules. And I think just I'm at the stage now where I'm in charge of my own camp. I get to pick what I think I need to spend my time doing, whether that's more strength conditioning or more sparring or bringing in another technical coach. And I just think, given the how would you say, the conditions I have being in Ireland, where we have such a high level of amateur boxing, I feel like some of the highest level sparring I can get is sparring in boxing. In that, I find that the pace of amateur boxing is as close as I can find to full contact karate, but also the damage that I'm taking is minimal. I mean, boxing sparring, I will credit that, especially if it's on a high level amateur level, it's incredibly safe. You're not getting hit much. The whole objective is to hit and not get hit. So I'm getting that ace of points karate, but I'm getting the full contact experience. So for me, I'm very fortunate that there's facilities around me and close by me that I can use to dive into the amateur boxing world again, and I've just found that the results I've been getting in my past few fights, both by performance and but then by the actual decision, that it kind of speaks for itself. So I've really dived into that while not disregarding my traditional roots. I still practice my karate every day. I still make a lot of emphasis on my technique.
That is, it has proven to be a winning formula, as I mentioned, the past couple fights. Now, of course, you definitely have your work cut out for you. You have Artur. Let's see, make sure I get his name right. Artur Vegra, who is 4-0 in karate combat, and he is a pretty good fighter and everything. From, it looks like, if I'm right, from Chile, if I've gotten that correct. What is it that you're doing to specifically prepare for this fight? By the way, if I want to make sure I mention, that fight is coming up in December. We don't have an actual official date yet, but it's going to be in Miami. So we definitely want the sport karate community that has been out there to support a Ross, a Raymond, Robbie, all of the guys that we are used to seeing in the sport karate field to come out and support you. But what are you doing to prepare for Arturo?
Yeah, so Arturo is a very good opponent. I mean, we do have you're exactly right there. We do have our work cut out for us. He's got a very wild style, and I need to make sure in my training that I'm preparing myself by getting similar sparring partners, but also practicing what I'm going to be executing on the night, which is to expose the wildness, make use of that. Well, when you're throwing, you're open to be hit, and it's my job to make sure that I can take those openings when they come and make sure I can secure not just a decision victory, but stop him at all cost.
With that being said, there are two other questions I have as we start to draw to a close. You always have, man, your hair is beautiful, always tight, with the braids. Who does that for you on fight night?
So my fiance braids my hair for all my fights.
I'm definitely dropping some pictures and everything. And of course, I thought that was the answer, but you recently got engaged. Kind of walk me through, because you're preparing for a fight, but I also know that you're prepared. You're like, I really love to ask her to marry me. You're planning on a win. In the perfect world, you get this great win and you're able to present the ring. How do you plan in duality for that? Because you're focused fight first, but then also you've got someone that's holding this ring in this audience. So walk me through that time of that day, the victory, which we'll drop in some video of this here, and also asking your girlfriend to become your fiance.
Yeah. So yeah, it was a fantastic night. I mean, both with the victory and then asking the woman I've been with for over a decade to marry me. I mean, it was definitely a highlight of my whole life. Going into the fight, it was no different than any other, to be honest. I mean, I'm very good at compartmentalizing everything that I'm doing, and going into that fight, I just seen my opponent in front of me. I dealt very well with just putting everything else aside, everybody else around me aside, and I guess it was only when the guy went down and the referee waved it off, then suddenly kind of real life kicks back in, and it was fantastic. She said yes.
Were you more nervous about the fight or her saying yes? Because both have they're different worry, but they're as you said, compartmentalized.
It's a different type of worried. I mean, when I'm fighting, I'm not worried for myself. I'm more worried for the people around me. I mean, like it's who I'm presenting. I'm not worried about what the opponent's going to do to me as such. It's more about what if I don't deliver.
Right.
But I would say it's uncomparable for me.
Well, we're looking forward to another great fight of yours again. December coming up, literally in a number of days. It will be December. Take a close look at karate.com to definitely find Eoghan Chelmiah. My friend, I wish you the best. Hopefully, fingers crossed, I might even be there. We're going to hope that is going to be the case. But it's good catching up with you. We'll post all your socials to you. Thank you for your time today.
No, thank you so much, and I hope to see you there.